Hello and welcome to episode 84 of Fergo and the Freak. I'm that bloke from Rugby League Project, Andrew Ferguson. You can find me on Twitter at AndrewRLP. Joining me once again is League Freak, who you can find on Twitter at League Freak. How you going there, mate?
I'm going very well. Just watched the Manly Seagulls bow out for 2019 against the South Sydney Rabbitohs. And, well, it was a really, really good contest.
It was. It wasn't.
Guess what's getting talked about?
Yeah, I was going to say, before we get on, I was going to say it was actually quite an entertaining game without being an all-time classic or even a great game. Just the toing and froing was so good. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it really was. It was like back and forth through the entire contest. We saw some great plays. We saw some, breakdowns in defence. It just like had everything. It was really, really entertaining. And I think probably in terms of like the finals games we've seen so far, I think overall that's been the best one to watch. It was great.
And if we cast our minds back quite a ways to the last episode where we reviewed this match, or previewed this match, sorry, I'm pretty sure that we agreed that the South centres were among the worst form-wise this year, and that we thought this game would probably see the score change a few times.
Yeah. There was Manly should have had one try. James Roberts just slipped over in defence, and they made a break. And I mean, how many times have we seen second rows in the last few weeks get into the clear and think, okay, I've got my support players either side of me. What'll I do? I'll just run it myself and forget my support players. If he had passed it, and I don't know what the player's name was, but if he had passed it to any of his support players, Manly scores under the posts. Unbelievable. Yeah. And we've seen it happen so many times. It's like the rule should be, are you a forward? Yes, pass the ball. Pass it. You should have already passed it.
Yeah. But if you're thinking, should I pass the ball? That's when you pass the ball.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're asking a second time, too late, you've already blown your chance.
Yeah. Should I pass the ball? You should have already passed it.
Yeah. Well, have a look at the first half. The one thing that stood out for me in the first half is how atrocious the South edges were in defence. Gagai, Roberts, Sam Burgess. That second try that Manly scored, he just flung his arm out, probably trying to grab a handful of hair or something. But they were woeful. There was little impact going in their defence. It was very grabby.
Yeah, and there were a lot of tries scored around Reynolds, like on the outside and inside of Reynolds. He was absolutely atrocious in defence tonight. There's no other word for it. Manly did a really good job of attacking his side of the field and got a number of tries from it. Massive breakdowns. I mean, that's going to be a real problem going into next week's game against the Canberra Raiders down there in Canberra, because they were just absolutely terrible on that side of the field. And like as you said, like Gagai and Roberts, both of them, they had very poor games. Manly just exposed a lot of problems in this South Sydney defence.
I mean, Gagai got schooled. He got lapped by a bloke who was sleeping in his car instead of training and eating boxes of chicken McNuggets instead of proper food.
Yeah, it was tell you what, it was a good try by McNuggets.
Oh, man. Okay. Obviously, he started at the West Tigers as a junior, and the club saw the potential in him. They offered him, I think it was close to bloody 200 or 300 grand or something on his very first contract as a teenager before he'd even played a game.
Mm-hmm.
That was the potential they knew. And so to see him playing like this, I look at it and go, yeah, I kind of always knew that he had this in him.
Yeah.
It's just a shame that he let laziness get in the way when he was at the club. But I am happy to see that Des has essentially stuck a boot up his ass and told him, you need to smarten up, otherwise that's it. And he really has responded well to Des.
Yeah, and he's been fantastic. And, sometimes... And look, I can't even imagine what it would be like being a teenager and having hundreds of thousands of dollars given to you playing footy. Like, I don't think I would have handled it well. And sometimes just, at some point you get to where it's like, dude, this might be it. If you stuff this up, this might be the end of everything. And maybe he's just got to that point and it's woken him up a little bit. The good thing is, Des has got the best out of him so far, and hopefully it continues going forward because he's just been sensational.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing him drop probably another 5 kilos.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
I think that would add just a touch more pace to him. He'd be unstoppable.
Yeah,
he looked damn good tonight.
There was another good hit tonight by George Tafua.
Oh,
he was great.
He racked him up.
Yeah, he was he put one on, and man, we wouldn't want to be running towards his side of the field, hey? Like, there's going to be forwards that have been like, dude, I know it looks like there's a clearing there, but don't pass me the ball.
Yeah. You know what's good about him is that his technique is sweet.
Yeah.
The timing, everything about it is so perfectly in alignment so that, it reminds you a bit of Nigel Plum. When he makes that hit, people get hurt.
It makes you wonder about how many times or how much effort is put into defensive technique with younger players, and whether it's kind of something that gets left by the wayside a little bit in terms of, like, if you see someone's a good defender, you just, you try and build their game a little bit in other areas. And I wonder if teams put a lot more emphasis on defensive technique, whether we'd see players doing more tackles like that. Because, as you say, there's some players, they just naturally get it. Like, they just, all of it. They plant well, they push forward, they hit with their shoulder right, and he's one of those players.
Yeah, he just absolutely nails it. The thing is, you see so many big wingers these days, and none of them can tackle like that. But he's rock solid. Yeah, it's bloody good to see.
It really is. It's fantastic, and it's almost like having a weapon in defence, especially if he can read defence well, which he does.
Yeah.
Like, he isn't doing these tackles, and like, he's literally shutting down backline plays with these tackles. They're an effective tackle. It's not like he's putting on his big hits and every so often you're like, oh, he timed on that. Like, he's shutting down plays with these hits. It's incredible.
Certainly is. And I think it sort of highlights the fact that that's something that everyone sort of goes, ooh, about. They just love watching the Tafua hits. I think it's largely because most defences these days are trained to be 2 men in every tackle. The fact that he doesn't need any assistance to pull off a tackle on anyone, it just stands out that much more.
Yeah, and there's also a thing where, like, you can do all you want with wrapping the ball and everything up. A good time tackle, it just shuts the play down. It's almost like a liver shot in boxing. It's like, whatever happens, you can't prepare yourself from being just completely dominated in the tackle. Like, you're just holding on to the ball and hoping that it doesn't hurt when you hit the ground,
Yeah.
It's
like your body goes into, I was going to say, it's like your body goes into self-preservation mode and stops thinking about playing football.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's no time it's like, bang, it's all over. It's the most effective tackle still.
Oh, he's a stunning tackler. We watch him nail people all day long. So yeah, there was. I was having a look having a look back on the highlights, and I thought a lot of the tries in that game weren't actually from great play. Like, there were a lot of fairly soft tries in there.
Yeah, there were a lot of bad reads defensively, and a lot of arm grabbing that led to tries as well.
Exactly.
There was one really good play that South did close to the line, and I think it was Reynolds. He sort of drew a couple, and it was only in a few metres. He drew defenders across and put the pass back on the inside, and it was the lock. What was his name?
Murray. Yeah.
Murray. Yeah, he dived over in that hole that was made. I thought that was a beautiful try, absolutely fantastic, and right next to the post as well.
That's the thing that makes Murray so good, though, is that he is not scared to run that suicide line where you know you're going to get smashed by someone, and he just goes at it hammer and tong.
Yeah, and he was going into the teeth of the defence. Unfortunately, the defence had overread the play a little bit, and the inside defenders, I mean, they were dealing with the goalposts and all that, but yeah, I mean, he could have very easily just ran into a brick wall and got destroyed, but he goes for it. He's one of them players that's just fearless.
He is, and you'd love to have him in your side.
Yeah, you really would. And he plays above his weight a little bit in those terms as well. Like, he's not the biggest player in the world.
No, that's right.
Fantastic play. That was probably the one try that was scored that you were like, man, that was a really good try, that one. As you say, the rest of them were kind of defence holding back and just poor defence. I mean, there's a lot of points for a finals game overall.
Yeah. Now let's get on to the big talking points.
Okay.
All three of them.
Yeah.
All three of them. There's an awful lot of wrist faulting.
Yeah, I know. I guess the first one was when the Manly player, I can't remember the Manly player's name, he pushed the guy's head in the tackle, which
that was Gachevsky.
Yep, that's it. And, not needed. More of that crap that I think they need to penalise harder in terms of the grading with the match review committee. Yeah. They need to bump up those gradings for that. And it kind of broke out where the South players took offence to it and everyone started grabbing each other and, looking at each other meanly and saying nasty words to each other. And then Cody Walker does an open hand slap. And it had a bit of power behind it, but still it was an open hand slap. And it's 10 in the bin. That's it. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it's as the referee clearly said, mate, it's striking. He's hit him in the face.
Yep. Really straightforward.
There's no ambiguity here. That's exactly what the rule was. That was a hit to the face. 10 in the bin's perfectly fine. Yet people were blowing up going, oh. Yeah, it was a really unique situation though, because South had a player go in the bin, but they also got a penalty.
Yeah, and
I think that's what sort of caused a lot of people to get a bit, hot under the collar, I guess, because they thought, maybe Gachevsky deserved to go to the bin, but he wasn't striking. He was just I call that grubby and dopey.
Yeah.
And yes, I'm obviously I'm with you on that one. We need to be doing something to rub that shit out. There's no need for that. It's pointless.
And if he missed next week because of it, I'm fine with it.
Absolutely.
Just to get that crap out the game.
Yep, I'd absolutely urge that.
Yeah.
Sorry, South fans, but if you've got to stop saying that, we can't be losing players from big games. And I'd say no bullshit to that. The only way you're going to make a strong statement on getting rid of this stuff is you say, we don't care what the game is.
Mm-hmm. You
do something like that, you are getting a suspension. We can't sit there and just say, it's a grand final. We need to find a way to make sure that we say, you're going to be punished, but we're not going to force you to miss the game, because that's not a punishment.
Yeah. And obviously, I got mixed up there. It was a Manly player that did that grubby stuff, and they won't be playing next week because they lost. But yeah, they need to come down harder on those sorts of it's just crap. It's not needed. And Cody Walker, it was interesting after the game. He said he was disappointed in himself for striking in that situation in retaliation for it. And he was like, he didn't make any excuses. It was like, I stuffed up there. You can't strike.
Even he's not refs folding.
No, not at all. Not at all. He took it on the chin and he was like, that was on me, which I thought was really good and really bad moment for him. He'll hopefully learn from that. He had a bit of a mixed game. He was quiet at times, but then at other times he was very good. So hopefully he's turning his form around. But that was probably the first of, the things that the media is going to, it's just going to be the focus, unfortunately, in this game. They're not going to look at the game itself.
Well, yeah. Then there was another sin binning. Let me remember, that was Brad Parker for a trip. And
now it's interesting.
I was just going to say, in fast play, it kind of looked like he's putting his foot out in preparation to block a kick. But when you see it back, you sort of look at it and go, that looks like a premeditated trip to me more than a attempt to block the ball.
Yeah, and for the first replays, they were showing it sort of head on, and the angle that he was at was very different. So he wasn't head on to the where the footage was coming from. So head on, I was kind of like you. I was like, look, his leg has gone out. He has tripped the player over, and it deserves the sin binning. But then there was an angle from behind him, and his leg goes out, and he flat out, it was a trip.
Yeah.
And that come up after he'd been sent to the bin. And when I saw that angle, because at first I was like, 10 in the bin, yeah, I'll accept that just because it's a bit of a grey area. When I saw that replay from behind, I was like, he should have been sent off. So I thought that Manly kind of got away with one then, because that was as dangerous as it gets in terms of tripping a player.
Yeah, and this is the thing that gets me to, and I think it's because we've had eye gouges and shit like that this year, but tripping should be considered in the same sort of realm.
Yeah.
And it used to be.
Yeah. It used to be like, you're gone, get off the field.
Yeah, it's like one of the lowest grub acts you can do, up there with, eye gouging. That's where it was. And for some reason, it's just been seen as, it's just another thing. We'll just give him a fine for that. And I think, no. Too many trips this year, got to start getting heavier. If something's happening too often, we need to start cracking down on it because the punishment clearly isn't enough.
Yeah, there has to be that thing for players where they know that, you put your leg out like that, you fling it out like that. I mean, there's a difference between, I can get where there's a reaction of a player is just beyond your reach and you're in defence. And there's times where you feel like you've got to lunge and do that first massive step. And in doing that, your leg's going out, you're trying to grab the player, and sometimes it doesn't work out. I get that. And if that was what we saw tonight, I would have been like, 10 in the bin, that's fine for that. But I don't think that's what when I saw that angle from behind him, directly behind the player, I was like, man, that's a send-off tripping. And I thought that Manly were very, very lucky in that instance.
Yeah, I think, I'd be surprised if he doesn't have to take a trip to the judiciary.
Yeah, because Roberts was flying through, got flat out tripped over. Could have been really, really ugly. Very lucky that he wasn't injured. And you don't know, I'm sure his legs probably really hurting in that, tonight. But yeah, terrible.
Yeah, and the last one was Jake Trbojevic pulling a defender, an attacking player from South out of the play so that he could try and effect a tackle. And at first, again in fast play, it looked like he'd only just brushed his hand on him and the player may have dived. But you look back and he's actually got a handful of his jumper.
Yeah, and the thing was, he was the player was to his left. He grabbed the left-hand side of his jersey, so it's not even like he was trying to jostle the right side of Gagai.
That's right, he was behind him too.
Yeah, so he grabbed his jersey, pulls him back, takes him out of the play. Gagai was the immediate support player, the closest support player. And that's really straightforward. That's been a rule, and I was joking with you before the podcast, it's been a rule since 1895.
Yeah, and to hear commentators blow up over it. And the funny thing is, I was watching that one on Fox, and they blew up about it initially, and then they saw the replay and they went, oh yeah, that's probably not on.
I watched it on Channel 9, and the reaction was absolutely ridiculous from the commentators. Like, they're going, no. Like, that's literally what they did over and over again. Really straightforward. And the thing is, too, when you watch it in the replay, I believe it was Murray made the break from memory.
Yeah.
And he looks at Gagai, and then Gagai's gone. And so he has to go out to the man outside of him. He literally took out a support player and his closest support player, and that's black and white. That's straightforward, and it was another really good decisive call by the referee.
Yeah.
Straightforward.
Yeah,
not an issue with it.
I'd say that the referee's decisions tonight when it came to all three sin binnings, they were clear with their rules, and they did not waste time, and they made the right call on it every time, and they explained it to the players, and then they walked away and said, we're not going to debate this, it's time to keep playing football. And I think when it came to those three decisions, that was the most confident I've seen them when it comes to a decision like that all year. And I liked it.
I did too. And the thing was too, the three decisions to sin bin the players, it wasn't like there was grey area.
No.
It was like, well, that's an offence, and that's an offence. It was really straightforward. And as you say, the referees were very confident, and I thought they were great. I thought they were fantastic.
Yeah, no, I literally wish they had been like this for years. Just to be that confident with their decisions to go, no, that's definitely going in the bin. And I like the fact that, and you'll see this every year, that finals comes around and they sort of treat it a bit like Origin, where they put the whistle away a little bit and they go a bit more easier on the players, and sin bin or send off offences usually just get put on report and they play on and try and keep it 13 on 13.
Yeah.
And this time around they went, no, we're not going to copy any shit. We're just going to keep enforcing the rules as we should do, as if it was a game in round one. And I was looking at it going, about time.
Yeah, I agree.
Loved it.
And the other thing was too, the three offences that we've talked about here with the sin binnings, because I watched Channel 9, right, and they were saying, and Andrew Johns and Paul Vaughton and Jonathan Thurston, they were basically saying the referees decided this game, and it's like, well, one player punched another player, and that's a sin bin, right? And then another player tripped another, that's a sin bin, and then you took out the support player that by dragging him back by his jersey, that's a sin bin. It's like you made the decision for the referee. There were no grey areas there. It was just straightforward, decisive action was taken, and they are literally the black and white rules of the game. And it was fantastic to see the rules of the game enforced.
Yeah, and as I said, like on Fox Sports, they come out and they say, oh, no, that's not, oh, and then they look at the replays, oh, yeah, I think he's got that one right. And I hate the fact that the default option every time, whenever there's a sin binning, is blame the referee, not the player. Yeah. The referee did not put the player in that position. The referee didn't force the player to do that. It's always the player's fault. Sure, the ref may get it wrong every now and then, but I don't think you'll find too many sin binnings that go on every year that are unjustified. And people have got to remember too that, as us armchair critics are, we get the benefit of replays and 7 or 8 different bloody camera angles and commentators telling us what's going on, and they're looking through binoculars and stuff as well. We've got that many eyes on the game helping us watch the game. Our job's easy to just sit there and point at all the errors. These bastards out there, they've only got the one view, and if they've got a player between them and the action, which is going to happen a lot, then they're not going to be able to see things too clearly. And they've got to make judgment calls. And a lot of the time, those judgment calls are spot on.
Yeah.
And we saw that tonight. It shows you just how fantastic these people are at their job.
It's unbelievable at times. And that's what got me about the line judge's call last week when he said that the Storm player's hand touched the sideline, because in real time, when it happened, I was like, oh, I think his hand touched the sideline. And then in the replay, and I'm looking at it on a giant TV, like I'm probably getting cancer from this bloody thing. I'm sitting so close to it too. And when they showed the replay, I was like, oh, I got that wrong. They say that the touch judge, but I haven't been running up and down the sidelines for the last 2 hours either. And, I don't have to run around places to see the action either. And, they get so many calls right. They're really, really good at their jobs. They're not going to get everything right because they're human beings and human beings fail. But yeah, and that's something I would like to talk about too, is in that last 15 minutes, that game was there to be won by both sides. There were failures by South Sydney. I mean, there were failures by both teams. Souths at one point got into great field position because Manly had turned the ball over about 10 metres out from their own line. And instead of going for the field goal, Sam Burgess ran to the right and lost the ball. He ended up going off the field with a HIA, which is something else I want to talk about with that in a bit. But so that was a failure on South's behalf because they could have gone for the field goal. There were a couple of mistakes by Manly. They dropped the ball about 3 different times. One of them with 2 players, the wing and the fullback, didn't communicate and they collided and dropped the ball. There was another really bad drop ball, like a simple drop ball, up towards halfway. And then in the last minute, they had a dropout and they were going for a short dropout and they didn't get the dropout off in time. And it was just from right in front penalty to South and basically iced the game because that meant Souths were up by 8 points with only about 10 seconds left on the clock. So these two teams were making big mistakes when in an elimination final when the pressure was on and the game was tight. And that needs to be remembered. Both these teams made really, really big mistakes. And that needs to be remembered ahead of all of this other stuff in terms of the referees made the right calls. They made really decisive calls. And it was mistakes by the teams and the players themselves that decided this contest. And could have decided it either way. If one team didn't make those mistakes, they win the game. Unfortunately, they both made mistakes. And that needs to be remembered out of this contest.
Absolutely agree. Now, you did touch on something there, and that was towards the end of the match there, Sam Burgess did come off with a HIA. I think he fell awkwardly in a tackle and got crunched by Tafua.
Yeah, I think he fell in. I mean, they were saying it was Tafua's shoulder hit Burgess. I thought it was more his chest. What did you think?
I initially thought it looked like he had his arms down by his side, and I initially thought it might have been part chest, part arm / elbow, but not in a way where he was poking it out to try and hit him.
No.
Just that he just crashed like face first into him. He just like he was trying to run into a wall without putting his hands out to brace himself.
Yeah.
It just looked kind of like that, and just Sam fell forward, sort of face first into his chest.
Mm-hmm.
Just, I suppose that's one of those times when, doesn't matter how good your technique is, if someone falls in an awkward position, that's never going to work out well.
Yeah, it was probably even less that could be done. Like we talked about the Jared Warrior-Hargraves thing a couple of weeks ago where the player literally fell down into him and he just happened to be existing in that spot. It was almost like that. Tafua was running towards the play. But yeah, it wasn't like there was a movement even forward by his arms. And I don't even know that his arms hit Burgess. I really do. I think it was his chest. Burgess fell down into his chest, and poor old Sam Burgess. I mean, it looked like it turned him off for about 20 or 30 seconds there, and he come off with the HIA. The thing that I would like to talk about, and I don't know if you know the rule in this case, right? And it luckily, and I say luckily, it was a very unlucky incident, so that's the wrong word. But this happened in the last 5 minutes of the match, and South didn't have any interchanges left. My question to you is, if you're in an incident like that where a player comes off with a HIA and obviously can't return to the field, right? So it's been proven that he does have, he has been affected by the concussion.
Mm-hmm.
But you've already used up all of your interchanges. Does that player that replaced you in the HIA incident, does he have to then come from the field so you're down to 10 to 12 players?
No, because someone goes off with a HIA, it's a free interchange.
But then if they stay off with a HIA, then it counts as an interchange, doesn't it?
I don't think so. I think if a player comes off with a HIA, the other player comes on and replaces them. I'm pretty sure it's just a straight swap, like they didn't. Yeah. So whether they if they get cleared to come back onto the field, then when that player comes back on, that one counts, I believe.
See, I thought that one didn't count, but if they said he's not coming back, then it does count because I thought about a situation where. Would it get to a point where a player he has gone on as the HIA replacement, but then if the player gets ruled out, do they have to then take that replacement off the field? And is that a bit of I don't know, a loophole in the rules there.
This is my understanding, okay, and that would be if there was a situation where they said we can't bring a player on because we've used up all of our substitutions and he's been knocked out, then you run the risk of the club saying, this game's in the balance. We can't have Sam Burgess come off the field because then we'll be down to 12 players and Manly might win. So we're going to leave him out there.
Yeah, and
that's the reason why I think that they can come off and be replaced for free, so as to stop clubs from leaving players who have been knocked out on the field.
Okay, I do. I hope that that's the rule, because when I was watching the game and the way it was being described, and I was like, oh, that does open that door for you leaving the player out there. And I was really, and Sam was obviously really badly knocked about. It wasn't like there was any grey area there, but I was very impressed with the way that South straight away were like, yeah, he's no good, and took him straight off the field. And put his health first. So I was very impressed with that.
He was definitely in a bad way. So
it really was. It was not good to see. There was another HIA earlier in the game where Johnson, Johnson and Dooley, they had a head clash, and Johnson, his head started, pouring blood straight away. He looked like he got the worst of it. They brought him straight off, and then the other player, they said, look, you've got to come off as well. I think he was a little bit surprised by that, because they did a quick assessment on the field, and he looked like it was just one of those incidents where it looked like he sort of come out of it the better of the two players, and he did end up going back on the field. But yeah, that was a nasty head clash as well. Hopefully Johnson's all right for next week, because that was really nasty. A really bad head clash, that one.
Yeah, plus Johnson is, I know I said in the last episode, he's a genuine try scorer, and that first try he scored, we saw there the difference between a standard winger and a player who knows how to score tries, because he saw that opportunity. Even though there was a cover defender coming across and one in front of him, he still looked at that situation and said, I can score here, and then went and did it.
Yeah, and those natural try scorers, and it was funny because when he scored that try, I was thinking, man, Andrew was talking about that earlier. It's crazy how the natural try scorers, that half gap, they always score.
Yeah,
it's crazy. They must have just a better instinct for there's something that they do that's different that I can't put into words, but they just get there. They make it happen. Yeah. And it's so cool when you see and he really is. He's a natural try scorer, and man, he had half a chance and he scored it easy.
Yeah. It didn't even look like it was going to be a hassle. And I just thought it was crazy because it was basically a 2-on-1, and he was the one.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Love watching a good genuine try scorer, ply their craft out there. It's fantastic to see.
Yeah, it's funny how those sorts of players sometimes don't get valued enough by teams, I don't think. Like, I always think of Bevan French. He was the same sort of player.
Yeah.
And you're telling me that there aren't teams that would kill to have just a natural try scorer out there? Like, I don't understand why other teams weren't chasing him.
Especially one that's as fast as Bevan French. That kid can motor.
And his try-scoring record is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, he didn't get to play too many games, but yeah, his try-scoring record was it was pretty bloody insane. He's over in England now.
Yeah, hopefully he's doing the same thing over there, because he really is one of those players that he should be back in the NRL. Like, I think, put him on the wing for the Titans. Put him on the wing we talked about it earlier, put him on the wing for the Broncos. They could use him. Anyone.
He scored 35 tries in 47 NRL games.
That's insane.
He scored 4 tries in 5 games in the Super League.
There you go. It's just some players that...
Yeah.
Can you imagine what it must have been like to watch Ken Irvine do that over the course of his entire career?
Or the likes of Brian Bevan.
Yeah.
Albert Rosenfeld, another one. God, the bloke was a legend.
Over in England. Like, these players that, and obviously there's a lot more tries to be had over in England, but these players that just can get to the line they're freaks. They're real freaks.
Well, people need to remember too that Martin Offiah is one of, I think, only 2 players to ever score 10 tries in one game.
Mm.
I think George West was the other one back in the 40s or something like that. 10 tries in one game, and he did that in the 90s.
And when you watch the highlights of that game, it's as though you're watching a video game. It's like you're watching 2 bad teams, and then you've got like this player that you've brought in, and you put all of these stats up to 99. It's so weird.
It's like taking Roger Tuivasa-Sheck and then putting him in a reserve grade game in the New South Wales country somewhere.
Yeah. It's very, very strange to watch because, and taking nothing away from him, he was just that good.
Yeah, he was ahead of everyone else. He was the future.
He really was. It might have been one of the first times you and me talked, and it might have been before we'd even recorded a podcast. And I remember saying to you how if you took him back in the late 80s and put him in a side today, they would say, I can't believe what an athlete this guy is compared to everyone else today.
Yep.
And he was doing that back in the late 80s.
Yeah. He was a lot of people have heard that, that 80s going into the 90s period, England got left behind when Australia started to properly embrace professionalism, as in they do proper training drills and proper fitness and exercises and all this sort of stuff. And England were left behind. They're still playing the game like it was in the 60s. You'd go to the pub after your game and you go to the pub after training and sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. And Aussies, they're doing nutrition and diets and all sorts of weights and stuff like that. And Martin Offiah, along with, say, Ellery Hanley, were 2 of the very, very few English players in the 80s and 90s who were doing exactly the same thing the Aussies were.
Mm.
And it showed on the field because they were streets ahead of everybody else over there, and they were world class. They could have got themselves into any of those Australian sides in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, 100%. And the thing is, too, like, there are players, and I think of Eric Gross Sr., right? I think if you took him, and I'm talking like him as he was, and you brought him into the current day game, he's playing against wingers now that would be faster than him, way stronger than him, way bigger than him. Like, and I'm not saying he would disgrace himself, but I'm just saying the facts, I think that back then he was like so strong and so powerful compared to everyone else. I think if you brought him into today's game, that wouldn't be such a standout as he was back then. Whereas Offiah, you put him in today's game, he's the quickest player in the league today.
Yeah. And
Unbelievable. Don't you wish you had a time machine for it?
It's kind of like, I think the best way to look at it is, imagine putting someone with the elusiveness of Josh Adokar into the frame of Wendell Saylor.
Yeah, and then make him a bit faster. It's crazy. It's crazy.
The bloke was an absolute freak.
It really was.
It was the first of those wingers who you would toss the ball to when you needed someone to do something. Like Parramatta were doing with Semi Radradra.
Yeah,
he was the first of those really in the modern game.
Yeah, it's and like Semi is another one who was a natural try scorer as well. And you know what, Sivo is looking like, and it's very early days for Sivo, but man, he's looking the same way. That he might be that ridiculous combination of like as big as most forwards, super powerful, very very fast. But he's also, and I think you see it with some of the tries he's put on for other players, where he's just naturally, he just does certain things that it's like, this guy is a try scorer. But it's very early on for him. I mean, Radradra did it over a number of seasons, and I hope we see Sivo do it his entire career in rugby league.
The thing for Sivo is his speed of improvement is off the charts. But we saw him fumbling around in round 1 this year.
Mm-hmm.
And look at him going, oh, gee, I don't see this one working. Every week you saw improvement. And now you look at him playing, he's playing with so much confidence He's so good at what he does. He's an absolute just ball of energy.
Yeah, and the other thing is too, like he can get the ball flat-footed and blast one defender, just put him on his ass.
Yeah.
And then the acceleration, so now he's away. And then the vision, like to then get away from everyone else. And then the weird thing is when he gets in the clear, he's really good at finding who his support players are and putting a really good pass onto them as well. Which for a finisher, sometimes you don't see that with a winger because they're normally the ones finishing the play. And as you say, that improvement, man, I'm looking forward to watching him play tomorrow. I can't wait.
You know what? We didn't discuss this, but we did get an email during last week about the worth of wingers.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if we should. I reckon we should probably do it now.
Yeah, let me bring up the email because it was a really good email, and we were going to base a whole episode around it. It was such a good email. So let me just go into my email and find it. It was from Christopher Kilismanis. I hope I'm saying your name right. And he said, "Hey boys, I have a question for the podcast. I'm always hearing that wingers are demanding too much money and then that they're not worth it, etc. My question is, at what point do wingers start making that big money and the position gets recognised as something worth paying overs for? Since they took out the rule where if you hit the corner post, it's a no try, it seems like time and time again wingers are in the most vulnerable defending positions and the most fantastical attacking moves. A defender who can do both efficiently perhaps should be demanding top dollar." And then he says, "I'm enjoying the podcast. Keep pumping them out. I enjoy more than 2 episodes a week as I feel it's less of a chance that you're like every other podcast who does just the wrap up and the prediction." So that was, and he says all the best. So thank you so much for that email. That was a fantastic email. And it prompted us to put together, well, first of all, let's talk about the worth of a winger in that situation.
Yeah.
When I played the game, and I didn't play at any level, but when I played as a kid, I always wanted to be a winger because my favourite player when I was a little kid was E.T. and when early in his career as a winger. So I always wanted to be a winger. And I've always felt that a true pure winger has always been undervalued.
Yeah. And I must say, I'd say in the 80s and 90s, and probably even the early 2000s, specialist wingers were the ones who would get you tries all the time. And that was pretty much their sole job was, be able to catch and run. They're your 2 jobs. You don't have to run fast. I mean, Rod Wishart was testament to that.
Yeah.
You just had to know how to run and know how to catch and get yourself over the line. That was pretty much it. Then, as the game changed in the 2000s, we started getting limited interchange. You had 4 players on the bench instead of 1 or 2. That sort of changed things a fair bit. And so you needed your wingers to be able to have the size as well to play essentially as a second rower. And it changed the way wingers became. You didn't get the small wingers anymore. Everyone had to be powerful. They had to be able to run the ball back hard and make meters. They had to be able to do it one out from the ruck when they're being pinned down their own half, take some pressure off the forwards, that sort of thing. The problem is, I guess, is that a lot of these players should be worth quite a fair bit of money. It's all about supply and demand, and there's a lot of these wingers out there now.
Exactly, and I think that thing about wingers needing to be able to come in and do work, I mean, obviously it's something that is part of the game, but I think that really come in with the Broncos and the one that started it really, from my point of view, that really got through a lot more work than most wingers did was Michael Hancock.
Exactly.
And then Saylor come into that side and it was him and Saylor. And then when Hancock left the team and it was Saylor and Takiri.
Yep.
And I think just the fact that Saylor and Takiri was so big, that put it into the mind of coaches and teams that you had to have that size, but it kind of masked over the fact that if these two guys were half a foot shorter, they would still be doing incredible things as wingers at the time. And Wendell was a pure winger. Like, you couldn't have put Wendell at fullback. He wouldn't have been that great as a fullback. And I think he would have said that himself. As a winger, he was a try scorer. He got through a lot of work. He was fast. He was mobile. And I think the size of him and Takiri put people off, so that they started going towards, we just need a big dude. We need someone that's got some pace and is a big dude. And in some cases, it really did work. But I think that it got some teams and the game a little bit away from valuing what a pure winger can do.
Yeah, for a long time there, we lost the likes of players like Josh Addo-Cars, who were out-and-out speedsters.
Yep.
We lost genuine speedsmen for close to a decade in that early NRL period stuff, because they were just going after big men everywhere.
And I think that's what hurt Nathan Blacklock in terms of playing for New South Wales. And him not playing for New South Wales, I believe, is a disgrace. He should have.
Fully agree.
I mean, just one of the greatest try-scoring wingers in the history of the Australian game. I will take nothing away from him as a winger. One of the best we've ever seen. But I think because at the time he was playing, there was this mindset that you couldn't not be 6'3" and 105 kilos and be a rep winger. I think that really hurt him. And we've seen, I'm trying to think of Nathan Merritt was another one who...
he got a rep on him too late in his career after he'd been through his peak. But he was another one, absolute freak in space.
Natural try scorer.
Yeah, I mean, look at this record for Nathan Blacklock. He scored 100 tries in 114 games for the Dragons.
That's just...
121 in 142 club games from 95 to 2004. That's when that game was going through all sorts of turmoil, and the role of the winger changed dramatically. He was still scoring tons of tries. You know, that golden period there, 98, 20 tries, 99, 24 tries, 2000, 25 tries, 2001, 27 tries.
How does he not make the New South Wales team?
How does he not? Yeah. I don't...
Unbelievable.
He did play for Australia.
Yep.
He played one game against Papua New Guinea and scored 2 tries in that game. And he played in one of the last ever Ashes tests.
Yep.
Actually, it was the last Ashes test, I think, 2001.
Last one. Was that the last one, or was it 2000? Or were they? No, I think 2003. Wasn't?
Might be, yeah.
Yeah, because I think that was Australia versus Great Britain.
Yeah, you're right. It was 2003. Yeah. So it's he got some honours there, but deserves so much more. Phenomenal. Should have played close to 20 tests. Yeah, I would have been close to that. Yeah, and just as many origins.
Yeah, and I mean, Merritt was another one that I feel as though, and Merritt was a smaller player, and I think that hurt him because they still like it. That's why Kotrick, they like Kotrick because of his size. And it's weird because Addo-Carr is probably the best example of a player now that thinking has changed a little bit, where he's such a good winger. He's such a good natural winger and a natural try scorer. They're now looking at those players again, and it's great to see because they're the best wingers.
They are, and I think it was also good to see that Valentine Holmes was another one. He wasn't a big player, but like Addo-Carr, ran the ball back hard and with pace. And was phenomenal, and another just genuine try-scoring freak, knew how to get across the stripe. It's good to see that they're moving back towards what looks like a more traditional winger, but still also open to toying with the big monster. I think that's what Melbourne's done well. They've got Vunivalu on one side, who's just a powerhouse, and Addo-Carr on the other one, who's just a bloody train.
And it's interesting because Parramatta have Ferguson and Sevo, and they're probably... I mean, they're ridiculously huge, both of them.
Yeah.
Ferguson, massive, but a natural try scorer. He can get to the damn line. And there was a try he scored last week where he got the ball, and if you weren't a natural try scorer, it would have been difficult. And he just walked in. I don't even think he got touched.
Yeah, he had to wait because the ball bounced in front of him. So he had to wait for the ball to bounce up and stop moving and grab it flat-footed and then go from there. The thing about Ferguson is it's not just his power and his speed, the agility of that bloke. For the size of him.
And his timing of everything is so good. Like if the ball is bouncing weirdly, he'll wait until it's time. If there's a gap to go through, he'll wait, and then he hits it. And his timing for everything is just phenomenal. And that comes down to being, and I don't even know, I'm sure somebody that's, a talent scout or something would be able to sit down, and I'd love to get an NRL talent scout out one day. They'd be able to sit down and say, you know what it is? It's this, and this. And that's what you're seeing as a natural try scorer.
Yeah.
But and I think that his size, it's not about his size. As I say, if he was half a foot shorter, he'd still be a phenomenal winger and one of the best wingers in the game.
Exactly.
And so it makes you, and going back to the question that was asked, if you look at Parramatta and you line up, because they get so much out of their wingers, and they've been a little bit lucky having Sivo sort of having him come on and in leaps and bounds in 1 year. They get more out of their wingers than I think pretty much any other team. I guess the Storm do as well. But those two teams, I mean, is there another couple of teams you can think of where they get that much out of their wingers?
Probably not. Canberra, maybe. But no, Canberra's not in the same ballpark, so I'd probably say no.
Yeah. But they're a completely different level. They get a lot out of their wingers, but not as much as the Storm.
No, that's right.
And so what value do you put on that? Because, can you get to a point where you can have a winger like Sivo and a winger like Ferguson, and that combination of the two is worth more than most, not even more than most, but more than just having one class winger. Is it worth spending $1 million on your wingers, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, if you get in that situation.
I was going to say, the interesting thing about that is you could probably argue that they're two of the top 5 wingers in the comp this year, Ferguson and Sivo. And I can guarantee you that there is a massive difference in salaries between the two.
Yeah. I think Sivo's on a minimum contract, actually, still.
There are obviously circumstances there. And even if he gets an upgrade at the end of the year, he's not going to get an upgrade to what Ferguson's on.
No.
Maybe half that, if that. So it's hard to tell. I think for a lot of players, not just wingers, the value comes down to importance to the way the team plays. So I'd say that wingers for the West Tigers, for example, would not be worth much at all because they don't rely on them as much because their biggest trouble is trying to make the big meters up through the middle. So wingers are something they're not thinking about at the moment, whereas Parramatta's game plan is through the wingers a lot. A lot of their sets start with 1 or 2 hit-ups from the wingers, and they go wide an awful lot. I mean, everyone talks about Mitch Moses and all his try assists. Have a look at how many of them come from kicks.
Yeah.
And he just kicks them up there and says, that's my job. I've got it in the air for you guys. You do the rest. And they do the rest. And that's what you do. You just get the ball out to wherever they're good and just leave the rest up to them. So good wingers for Parramatta are worth twice as much, I believe, than what they would be at the West Tigers.
Yeah. And that's a really good point. So I guess, does that mean that Parramatta can spend $1 million on 2 wingers and it's worth it for them? I personally think yes.
Well, we saw last year when they had no Radradra, they had no Sivo, and they had no Ferguson, just how well Parramatta went. They got the spoon.
Mm.
The year before that, when they had Radradra there, they were in the finals.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty clear that the way they play the game and their structure relies heavily on those powerful running wingers. So yeah, for them, they would spend a huge chunk of their money on powerful wingers. Absolutely.
So here's another question, right? Just say you are, and it's not for every team. It'd only be certain teams would be able to be in this position. But okay, let's look at, say, the North Queensland Cowboys, right? They could really, I mean, they've got Taumalolo in the middle, but their pack they could use some help with.
Mm-hmm.
They've got an origin halfback. They've got a pretty handy fullback who's probably not on the biggest amount of money. If North Queensland said we're going to spend $1 million and we're going to get Sivo and we're going to get Ferguson, would it be worth it to a team like that? And thinking to yourself, look, if we do that, we're always starting our sets off pretty well. And then we've got, they've got things to work with already. It's not like they've got a terrible team and they're just chucking two good wingers on the outside. There's certain teams that could maybe look to spend that money and it'd be worth it. I don't think it would be worth it to a team like, say, for instance, the St. George Illawarra Dragons, because they've got so much money wrapped up in their pack and their pack is fantastic. And as you say, it maybe wouldn't be worth it to the West Tigers because of the way they play the football. I don't think it would be worth it to the Gold Coast Titans. But there are certain teams where it might be worth it. But I can also see the argument against that, where you're like, man, there's heaps of, like you say, it's supply and demand. There's plenty of dudes. Go to Fiji.
Well, that's what clubs are doing. I mean, the Dragons had Ravalawa this year.
Mm-hmm.
The Cowboys had Nene McDonald before he got horrifically injured.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's not Fijian, obviously, but you get these Islander wingers. They're just unbeatable. There's no one in the world that's as good as them.
Well, you look at Penrith. At one point, they had DWZ, who I consider to be a winger fullback, right? They had Sauce. They had Ta'o, right? So that's three bloody good wingers. I mean, there are a lot of good wingers around. And it seems like anybody from Fiji just comes out and is just a fantastic winger. It's great. I always say all wingers should be Fijian. And so does that mean that spending $1 million on two wingers is absolutely ridiculous? Like, I can see both sides of the argument.
Look, I think for what would be the issue for, especially with the example you had there with the Cowboys, is I think it would mean that the coach would have to change the way he coached the team and the game plans he had to suit where he spent the money, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But these days, most clubs are spending all of their money, or not all of it, but they're spending a huge chunk of their money on their 1, their 7, and their 9.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go, right, what can we spend away from there? And it comes down to, where they've got junior strength and depth and stuff and where they're lacking and that sort of thing. But as I said, wingers, and you'll see it everywhere, okay? There's plenty of wingers out there. There's plenty of options out there for wingers. There's not much not much stock available for halfbacks.
Yeah.
And you're seeing at the moment there's a lot of halfbacks earning massive money and they've played zero rep footy. And it's been going on like that for a while. And that shows you the power of supply and demand. Yeah,
and I mean, these teams, and I think that Nathan Cleary is a great example. You've got a young halfback that ticks a lot of boxes, and you keep him, man. You sell a farm to keep him. And like the West Tigers are a little bit lucky that they've got Brooks on the cheap because he tried to keep a lot of players around that left anyway, unfortunately. But he'd be another sort of player. It's like we've got the halfback, we've got that sorted. Just keep hold of him. Hunt, he's close on $1 million, and people are blowing up about it. It's like it's literally supply and demand. You know, if you haven't got that halfback, damn, you want to pay $1 million for a halfback.
So Mitchell Moses is on 800 grand. You know, Ash Taylor is on close to $1 million, if not on it.
And look what happens when you're halfback and he hasn't played great. You know, he hasn't had it like, I would say he hasn't played as well as any of the other players we've just mentioned, ever.
No.
But look how the team goes without a halfback at all.
Yeah.
You know, would the Gold Coast Titans happily pay $1 million for even a solid halfback? Probably would.
Yeah. Well, they're paying it anyway now for a poor one, so an upgrade to a solid one would be a good idea, I think.
It'd be handy, wouldn't it? It'd also be nice if you wanted to play a bit of footy too.
Yeah, that'd be handy. You know, come and earn your wage for a little while. So we're going to look at who we thought might be the top 5 wingers of all time.
Yeah.
Did you write them down?
I did write them down.
Oh,
and
preparation.
You know what? As we're talking, I know preparation. It's kind of weird. I'm going to put in an invoice for this where we make $1. But look, we've named our top 5 wingers of all time. Until we did this together, I feel like part of me feels like I want to change one of them. No, hey.
That's fine. We'll toss it. We'll debate them.
But we'll name our 5 that we named, and let's see where we go from. So number 1 was Brian Bevan, and when you look at his try scoring record, it seems like a typo. It seems like it's not even possible.
And one player who never got to play Test football because he was Australian playing over in England. And he did it for 20 years.
It was ridiculous.
He started in 1942 for Eastern Australia and finished up in 1964 with Blackpool Borough. So 22 seasons straight.
And he scored. How many games did he play?
670 games and scored 757 tries.
Unbelievable.
87 more tries than games played.
It's just... I can't even imagine what that looks like over the course of a whole career.
That's insane.
It really is. 700 tries.
You know what's crazy is that he had 2 stints in Sydney with East.
Yeah.
He played 8 games and never scored a try in Australia.
Oh, really? Yep. I never knew that. Wow. That's insane. And look, you've got to keep in mind, tries over in England, they're kind of like medals in swimming at the Olympics. They are everywhere, you know. But still, you cannot look at that record. If he had just scored 1 try in every game, it still would have been ridiculous. He did way better than that. Yeah. And you just can't look past that. That's a record that will never be broken.
It's insane.
Number 2 on our list was Albert Rosenfield.
Yeah, Albert Rosenfield. So he started out in Australia with East in the debut season in 1908. One of the players who went on the Kangaroo Tour and decided to stay over there after the tour ended, and he stayed with Huddersfield. And his record looks impressive because he scored over his career, which was from 1908 to 1924. He actually went to war in the middle of that. He played 388 games and scored 389 tries. But the thing that stands out for him is that he holds the record and the second best record for most tries in one season in either Australia or England. So he set the record in 1912, 1913, when he scored 80 tries in about 40 games. And the year before that, he'd scored 78 tries in the same number of games.
And I remember when I went to Huddersfield in 2006, and I went to the Rugby League Museum, and they had quite a chunk of the Rugby League Museum dedicated to his ability. And I was talking to the curator that was there, and we were talking about Albert Rosenfield, and I didn't know a great deal about him. And I believe he said that he is in the Jewish Sports Hall of Fame.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah. And like, I mean, what an incredible record. And he went to war in the middle. That's
went to
incredible.
war, came back, and then returned playing football.
Wow, that's incredible. Wow.
Okay.
Is there anything more you want to say about Rosenfeld?
Well, just want to put it in perspective. So he scored 80 tries in one season, 78 in another. The next closest to that was 72, which was actually scored by Brian Bevan. The highest ever scored in the Australian League, so the NRL in the season before it, was 38 by Dave Brown, and that was in 1935, and he scored 38 tries in, I think, 16 games.
That's crazy. Oh man.
But he wasn't a winger. He was a centre. But
center.
That puts it in perspective that the best record ever done in Australian season, Rosenfeld doubled it and then added a few more on top.
And there's been, I'm pretty sure in the last 15 years in Super League, I think one year Leslie Vanicolo might have scored 38 tries. And then there was somebody else that I feel like got right up in terms of more than a try game, but I can't remember who it was.
Well, even in the 90s, even in the 90s, there was Vanicolo scored 38 in 2004.
Mm-hmm.
I think even in the 90s, some of the Wigan players in those amazing sides they had there, I think one of their top try scorers might have had 40. I think Offia had 40 or 50 for a few seasons.
Well, it's funny you bring him up because he's number 3 on our list.
He is.
I tell you what, if I am picking greatest teams of all time, I am finding it really difficult to leave him out. Really difficult.
Yeah.
I remember being a kid at school running around calling myself Martin Offia. Just unbelievable. And we've talked about him earlier. What was his try scoring record though?
He ended up with, at the end of his English career, he'd scored 417 tries. And, well, actually, I think he scored more than that. I'm looking on my website. I haven't finished the work on the English side there, so it's probably more. And he had 20 tries in Sydney in 27 games.
That's crazy in itself.
28 test tries in 36 tests as well.
Man, unbelievable.
Let me see if I can find his full record.
He's just, and I've got an all-time great team. I'm pretty sure on my website. And it needs a little bit of updating. Let me see if I can bring that up just now.
Well, he had 444 tries in 424 games in England.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, no, that's all up for his career, yeah. So better than a try game there.
That's crazy.
He even spent 2 seasons playing rugby union and scored 13 tries in 22 games.
What were they thinking? Why didn't they get him the ball more?
I don't know. So he played with Bedford Blues in 96-97, and then he played with the London Wasps in 2001-02.
Yeah, he played. He was also the headline player, and back in Rugby League, he was a headline player for a little bit for the London Broncos, and I believe that might have been when Richard Branson owned them at the time.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. So in my all-time great team that I named, and I named this team, man, this might have been 15 years ago itself, and I didn't have him in my team then. I feel like I would probably have him in my team now, though. But these top 5 that we've named, you can't go wrong with any of them. So number 4 on our list was Ken Irvine, who holds the all-time try-scoring record in Australian Rugby League first grade history, and basically the NRL try-scoring record, which we've had some players kind of, get close, but we've seen some great try scorers show how difficult this record is going to be to beat.
Yeah, I mean, you think Was it Billy Slater or Steve Menzies? Billy Slater got to 180, I think.
Yeah, Steve Menzies did well.
And they're still 30-odd tries short of Irvine, who scored 212 tries in 236 in Sydney. Unbelievable. On top of that, 30 tries in 24 games for New South Wales, 33 tries in 31 tests for Australia, and 7 tries in 8 games for City.
Yeah, just couldn't stop scoring tries.
That's all he knew how to do.
Incredible. How many first grade games did he play?
236, which is impressive given that he played at a time from 58 to 73 where I think it would have been the first part of his career would have only been 18 rounds per year, and then from 67 onwards would have been 22.
Wow, that's crazy. And yeah, it's interesting that we've had a few players. I mean, Brett Stewart, I remember at one point it was like, ooh, this is going to be interesting. And he didn't really get close. And there's been a lot of great try scorers that just at times you've sort of thought, oh man, he might be on track. And then they just don't get close. And it shows the consistency you have to have over so many years. That for even Menzies, he was very, very consistent, and he just, they kind of get close-ish, but they don't ever really get to that point where they even think, man, if I play another season, I'll get that record. Yeah. So unbelievable.
Absolutely.
Last one, and this was one you pulled out of left field, and I was so impressed, man. I was like, Andrew's doing some magic here. Cecil Ainsley.
Cecil Ainsley. He was known as the Red Flyer, Queensland winger. Never played in the Sydney competition. But this is back in the days when Queensland would play against England and New Zealand when they came over to tour and anybody else who was touring around the country. Mm-hmm. So Queensland didn't just play New South Wales back then. But he played 37 games for Queensland and scored 57 tries.
Crazy.
And I'm still building his profile from things like the Balimba Cup, where he represented Ipswich. Mm-hmm. And just on the few seasons I've done there, he played, I've got down 11 games so far and 12 tries already in that. And I'm not even close to finishing that.
Yeah.
He managed to play for 4 tests for Australia, scored 3 tries there. And that was at a time when Australia had Harold Horder, who was a massive try-scoring freak, and Sec Blinkhorn, another one exactly the same. He managed to push them out. He was that good. And
it's an interesting part of Australian Rugby League history, isn't it, where you have these players that come through Queensland and they probably didn't get the recognition they deserved just because they weren't playing in the big comp in Sydney. But they were doing extraordinary things. And when they were matched up with like-for-like opponents, they got the job done.
Yeah.
Like they did. It wasn't like he come up to test level and it was like, oh yeah, and he didn't get the job done. Like he kept on doing it, what he was doing.
That's right. And then he also went on a tour with the Queensland side to New Zealand and played in, I think, 10 games over there.
Mm-hmm.
How many tries do you reckon he scored in 10 games over on that Kiwi tour?
10 games. I'm gonna say 15.
31.
What the fuck? That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Just insane. The guy was just an all-out, just absolute natural.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. And look, oh man, I find it hard to. I was gonna say, I feel as though Nathan Blacklock, right?
Yeah.
I feel as though he needs to be given a special mention. And I was thinking before this, man, should he be number 5? But then it's like, you look at that record and it's like, oh, Nathan. I got some bad news, Nathan.
There's probably people will come up with a swag of other alternatives to Cecil Ainsley on there. and they're all going to be legitimately good options.
Mm-hmm.
I just think being a historian, I have a soft spot for these guys because no one saw them play.
Yeah.
And I feel some sort of onus to give these guys their just desserts, just rewards, all this sort of stuff, to try and make sure that people never forget the mad stuff that they did and how bloody phenomenal some of them were. And I think Ainsley's record, given that he never played in Sydney, because of that, he's barely known.
Mm-hmm.
But he played for Australia. He played for Queensland. He was a freaky strike scorer. So I think he deserves to be definitely in that conversation. That's why I was pretty keen on pushing him for being in the top 5 of all time.
Yeah, and look, it's a damn good. I mean, as I said, I thought Blacklock, but then you look at that record and you're like, man, and isn't rugby league history beautiful that we have these parts of it like that, where you've got a Cecil Ainsley, and I don't think people understand how beautiful the history of rugby league really is. I don't think they've got any idea.
No. I absolutely love going through the past of the game, especially those first 20 years, because you see so much development in the game and the players, and it happens so quickly. Phenomenal.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We weren't expected to do that.
No, but that's turned out to be quite a stunning little episode, that one.
Yeah, it's been a great one. I've really enjoyed it. We'll put this one up straight away, and hopefully people enjoy this after the really good footy game that we watched. And anybody that likes rugby league wingers, it's sort of like a current episode mixed in with a really good history episode. Yeah.
So if you've got any suggestions on who you think should be in the top 5 and probably who we should omit, obviously Ainsley will be the one because no one knows who he is. Let us know. Hit us up on the Twitter at FergoFreakPod, or you can drop us an email like Christopher did and give us your suggestions on what we could talk about. I mean, it's not like we're going to be slagging off about it. I think we spent about 35-40 minutes on that one. So
yeah,
we'll give it a good chat.
Yeah. So keep sending them in, any suggestions, and if you don't get a reply, you'll probably hear us on the podcast talking about your suggestions. But I'll reply to Christopher and let him know that this is the episode that he helped put together.
Exactly. And on that stunning note, we'll catch you all later.
Goodbye.